Hello guys and welcome to another tutorial about Le Mans Ultimate. This time we're going for button mapping. So what you want to do is go to the settings and into the controls area, and then the first thing you'll see is your selection of input devices. That is wheel and pedals, as I got steering wheel and pedals. I do not have a gamepad. If you do have a gamepad, then this will be available to you. And of course, the keyboard. And it is very important that you keep selecting between the devices that you want to bind the buttons on. You need to remind that when setting the buttons. So, going through the settings then, steering, throttle, brake, clutch, shift up, shift down, all self-explanatory. Shift to neutral. That to me is a very important button. I would bind a button to shift to neutral because if you go into the calibrate tab and if you go to stop sequential shifter to neutral, if neutral is configured, is on. A sequential shifter is also what we have on the steering wheels, but this also applies to H pattern shifting or if you have a controller. And use simultaneous shift up, down, and neutral activation on as well. Those two settings I recommend being on because this will be indeed the case to get into neutral at any point if either pressing this button or pulling on both shifters. So that is both times you being a completely active, completely in control. What has happened to a couple of people, me including already, when you are going for a heavy braking sound out of 7th gear, maybe into 1st gear on a hypercar, let's say in Spa, bus stop chicane, if you pull one time too often on the downshift and you do not have this shift to neutral button being mapped, then your gearbox will jump into neutral, and that might be a little bit ugly. So you can prevent this right there. Next up, very important, request pit stop. This is the only way you can request a pit stop when being in the car if you have this button mapped. If you do not have this button mapped, you cannot request a pit stop. And last but not least, the other six most important buttons are MFD next page or previous page, MFD navigate up, down, increment or decrement settings. Because as you can see in the tutorial about the new features with the HUD, which I have linked you in the top right corner, you can use all of these buttons to alter the electronics of the car, traction controls, brake bias, setup, pit stop menus, and so on. So those 6 buttons are extremely important. Anything else that comes now is kind of inconvenient setting, but I also recommend having on, of course, speed limiter, headlights, the headlights pulled, wipers for the rain, ignition and starter. You never know when you, for whatever reason, may stall the engine at some point. It's always good to have starter and ignition mapped to be able to restart the car. And then the electronics, I think they are important as well. It is just super convenient to do this directly with buttons on the wheel or on your button box to increase or decrease any of the traction control settings, to change the brake bias, to change and adapt the brake migration forwards and backwards, and most importantly, increment and decrement motor map, and increment regeneration and decrement of regeneration, because those 4 buttons are important for managing the hybrid system, managing the battery, and I have also explained this in the entire hybrid technology. I have also linked this in the top right corner. If you not manage your battery well and at some point hit 100% on the battery or kind of drain the battery whatsoever, there might be negative effects in your driving experience. So it is very important for your convenience if you have these buttons mapped. Again, you can also manage all these settings via the in-game HUD in the electronics part. For that, you have mapped the MFD buttons and the primary controls. But again, I think it's just very convenient and also important to have them mapped. So here in the gameplay, you'll see nothing on my steering wheel, but remember about the keyboard. Those kind of settings are kind of important as well. The load vehicle button, every time someone joins into the server, you will get this Porsche car as a temporary car, whether that is a LMP2 or a hypercar, even it's always going to be the Porsche 911 RSR model. Uh, Especially for practice, find a safe place where you can pull over, hit the L button if too many temporary Porsche cars are moving around, and then your game will freeze for a short time, but it will load the models. That is something I really recommend having. Time acceleration is useful if you do offline testing. AI control can be useful for that. You can toggle the driving aids. Yeah, I'll do that with the keyboard. Camera, for me personally, it's relevant, of course, because I'm here also to take screenshots, and there are a couple of settings possible with the change of cameras, free lens cameras, free camera moves and toggles and switches. You do not need them unless you are a content creator or creator of videos. However, what might be very important for you is the seat movers and the field of view. You can adjust the seat like in R Factor 2. I have linked the R Factor 2 video for you here as well, where you can move the seat upwards, downwards, forwards, backwards, and also where you can increase the field of view or decrease the field of view. Another tutorial I've done about field of view is also linked now in the top right corner if you're wondering what your personal correct and optimal field of view is. So you have it already out there as a tutorial, so I'm not going to speak about this further at this stage. Interaction, another recommendations from my end on the hardware side. Having a button map for checking your ping might be good, especially for online races. The reset FFB button is absolutely vital. If ever your FFB goes wonky, it's also occurred that the FFB is dead when you get out of garage. Sometimes this happens. Hit this reset FFB button and your force feedback will be reset. Frame rate and CPU time, those are important if you are having issues with either your frame rate or your FPS, game performance, lagging, lag spikes, whatsoever. There you can check how the hardware is being threatened or how the hardware is being asked for performance in the occurrence of these issues. Not much more that is vital here to set. Anything else is really just your own preference, really. Wheels and pedals, as we want to calibrate them. You always want to be sure that the steering wheel maximum rotation matches whatever is set in your driver profile. That way you can assure that with those two settings you get the best experience in terms of the way the steering wheel will behave when rotating. Some of the cars can be very nicely driven with using the steering wheel range from the vehicle. That goes to the hypercars or the GTEs. The LMP has the LMP2 has a little bit of a fast transmission in the steering, hence for the LMP. Yeah, between using and not using a steering wheel range, I'm not 100% sure yet how I want to go ahead with that in the future. Exaggerated yaw, look ahead, head physics, head vibrations. To me, turn them all off. This is the best that you can do in terms of the feeling for the steering wheel, feeling for the car not moving around too much, and so on. But of course, if you're not looking for esport settings or if you want to have a little bit of movement going on, feel free to find your personal preferred values here. Other than that, nothing too specific that you want to have here. Never release device. If you are an Fanatec user, especially of the direct drive, I think this one should be activated for you, as then the force feedback doesn't get grainy over a longer period of time. Yeah, guys, that's it. Quickly, an insight and a beginner's tutorial for setting up the controls. I hope you've appreciated that video, guys. If you did so, please give it a like, subscribe us on the YouTube channel, ring the bell, and thank you so much for watching.